So, dear Muslims, the whole purpose of all of those last few minutes is so that I bring up once again this issue of shutting the masajid down. Dear Muslims, I don't want to say this, but I will be honest with you. All of today, I have literally been crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I swear to you, this is not an exaggeration. I was literally, my heart is like it is, I have never felt this way. I was just crying in my room and crying in my cars, thinking that the masajid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are shut around the world. This is because of sins that we have done. There's no question about this. Allah knows how sad this is. Just the thought of not coming to the masjid for weeks and for months, the thought of not praying fajr, the thought of not coming here, it is something that is truly, truly terrifying, and it is something that makes me feel empty and guilty and sad. I don't say this out of any pleasure or pride, and yet still I say I fully agree with the logistical advice from the experts that we do need to shut down any public place. We do need to minimize any public interaction. Now I know that some of you know that some ulama have allowed masjids to be open. But dear Muslims, open your eyes and look around you. The councils over a dozen Muslim lands, from Saudi Arabia to Kuwait to United Arab Emirates to Qatar to Malaysia to Turkey to the list goes on and on. Here in America, the Fiqh Council of America and AMJA and the Islamic Medical Association, they've all basically said the same thing, which is that if the situation gets to that dire level, then yes, we should shut down the Jumu'ah and the Jama'ah. And dear Muslims, in most cities, I'm not speaking about the globe, but in most major cities in America and in England and in Canada and other places, the situation has indeed become dire. Now, let every community leaders say what they need to say. I am speaking about Dallas, Texas. I'm speaking about the community that I live in. And we have asked the experts and we've asked the people in our communities and the experts that know this issue. And to a man, all of them, to a man or a woman, all of them, they have said that we really should minimize any interaction, and it is best to shut down these congregational prayers that we are having. It is not an easy decision. It is not something that we like to do, and Allah knows my heart is greatly troubled. But dear Muslims, we cannot use a simplistic emotional response. We cannot use a misunderstanding of theology to go against that which we know to be true. Indeed, we put our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we tie our camel. Some of you say, oh, our Prophet ﷺ would stand up to pray when he became flustered or anxious. Yes, stand up to pray. I'm not telling you not to do that. Go stand up to pray. Some of us have said, some people have said that it's never been shown that, in the past Muslims closed their masajid. Well, maybe you are correct that to this level it has never happened. By the way, in regional places, it's sometimes because of a great fear. Obviously, in regional places, yes, there have been times when masajid have stopped for specific fears. But I agree with you, as at a global scale, we might be quite literally seeing for the very first time in over a dozen Muslim lands and over a dozen non-Muslim lands, hundreds of thousands of masajid shut down for the average musallin to come. This might be the first time, but do you think that this decision is coming out of nothing? I ask you, by Allah, I ask you a simple question. If there were a masjid that you were told, the engineers and the architects or the local city council said, oh, this masjid, its pillars are about to collapse, its pillars are going to fall down, it was constructed incorrectly. If you were told that, would you say, no, we must pray in this masjid and Allah wants us to pray in this masjid? No, you would say, okay, this masjid is a dangerous place, not because of anything evil with the masjid, but circumstances are like this. So the point is that the situation that we are in right now, this situation is a situation in which we now are far more familiar with the causes of how this disease is transmitted. We are familiar with how this coronavirus goes from person to person. And we know what our past scholars did not know. We know more about science and medicine than people did in the past. Therefore, we are required by Allah to take that knowledge into account when we derive our rulings. Dear Muslims, our masajid, we thank Allah, are places where people are packed together of all ethnicities and all backgrounds. But in these times, that blessing is the exact ambience that these viruses need to spread from person to person. There are hundreds of people of all different backgrounds, of all different nationalities, of all different traveling places coming together, packed, standing next to each other for lengthy periods of time. And every single medical expert is saying that this is the number one preventative measure, and that is to stop the transmission or the potential transmission by practicing social isolation, by putting in, barriers, physical space between you and other people. MashaAllah, dear Muslims, we're a friendly bunch. We thank Allah for that. Is it possible for me or you to come to the masjid and not shake people's hands? There's going to be 100 people, 1,000 people. Is it possible to come and not hug? And it's not possible really, and even if we tried to do it, it would not happen. And therefore, medical experts are unanimous that we really should shut down these areas until this disease passes by. Now, the claim that the shopping malls are open and other places are open and therefore we should keep the masjids open. Firstly, by the way, this is changing day by day and hour by hour. Today it was announced that all restaurants should be shut down. Tomorrow another issue is going to come out. So things are moving in that direction. Secondly, two wrongs don't make a right. Just because other places are open, they are dangerous places. We know this. Thirdly, those other places are, generally speaking, there's more ambience and air. You can keep a distance. Whereas in our masajid, it is literally line by line, row by row, packed to capacity. Fourthly, as well, we need to be aware there's levels of necessity. We can't expect hospitals to shut down. We can't expect places that sell food to shut down, or else all of us would be in serious trouble. These are places where we need to go to purchase items, and the masjid is indeed a very, very important place. Our heart wants to be in the masjid. But there is a dangerous threat. Like the building were to be falling down, we would not enter. So too, if the masajid are places where potentially there is indeed the potential for virus to spread, we should be cautious for the time being, as long as it needs to. And again, I say this with a huge loss, with a huge sense of grief, with a huge sense of emptiness. It was such a shock to me to hear today that a country like Saudi Arabia, where I've lived more than a decade of my life, has shut down every single masjid without exception, other than Mecca and Medina. And then to hear that a dozen other Muslim lands have followed suit in this, wallahi, it is something that makes the heart terrified. Indeed, this is a potential punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what we have done, that we are being deprived of our own masajid. But this means that we need to increase our himmah, increase our tawbah, increase our turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This means that we need to make our homes into places of dhikr, into places of iqamat as-salah, into places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name is mentioned, where the Quran's tilawah is raised. If we did not appreciate the masjids in the past, after this is over, insha'Allah ta'ala, every one of us will appreciate the masajid for as long as we live. Nonetheless, dear Muslims, needless to say, this might continue for many, many weeks. We might need to prepare a contingency plan for Ramadan. That will inshallah ta'ala be spoken about, but we will continue to update you. And we have set up a mini studio. By the way, I'm not sitting in the musalla. You might think I'm sitting in the musalla. We have set up a mini studio so that it looks like I'm in the musalla. I'm in a room all by myself. Nobody else is here. The camera's in front of me. That's how the level of caution that we are doing amongst ourselves. Can you imagine if we opened the door to 2,000 people or 500 people? It would not serve the purpose. And as we are aware, there was a religious gathering, by the way, in Indonesia. Look this up, or Malaysia, excuse me, a religious gathering where people came from all over the world and they spent some time together for the sake of Islam. Their niyyah was good. Because of that religious gathering, one person had the virus. Now 45 people, according to what I read the other day, have that virus. From that one person, because of a religious gathering, we tie our camel. We do not act foolishly, and coming together, ignoring what every expert is saying, is acting foolishly. And our religion is not a foolish religion. It is not a religion of superstition. It is a religion of knowledge, and Allah tells us to act with knowledge. And the people of knowledge are telling us that the number one mechanism to spread this virus is by person-to-person contact, and that is why we are taking these precautions. It is still too early to say about Ramadan, but inshaAllah ta'ala, If worst case scenario, we will be giving you every single day, without exception, religious, reminders to myself and all of you. We're going to try our best to keep a virtual masjid as much as we can on a daily basis. There's going to be an entire schedule. I think you have been told as well about this, that every one of us is going to be doing certain projects and things every single day so that we keep that attachment, because now is the time for that attachment. Now is the time especially to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.